Hey guys, and welcome to Movie Mumbles, where the
Blah,
mumbles
blah, 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 blah. I'm Roy. I cut into every single intro. Blah, 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 blah.
I was actually gonna do it straight for once, but
Oh wait, were you gonna use my tagline?
I was gonna try to.
I shouldn't have interrupted you. I'm still pissed off from last week.
Yeah. That was. I've just gotten used to it at this point, to be honest. Like,
I knew it was gonna stick, baby.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Movie Mumbles. I'm Roy Johnson, and joining me is Mr. Womble, who's joined me every time, so it's not really that unique. But
That's a surprise guest today, boys.
yeah, our surprise guest, no one. So this set of themes we're doing is musicals from the 2000s, and previous pick was a High School Musical, and this pick is Repo the Genetic Opera, which is the exact opposite of High School Musical, like in terms of mood, in terms of audience, in terms of mostly everything. I had a basic gist of what this movie was kind of about. It's from the director of it's from some guy who directed a bunch of Saw movies, so I was kind of interested. I wasn't sure whether I was gonna like it or not, but it looked interesting. Like, if you look at this movie, it looks unique, you know. It has a very gothic, Hot Topic kind of style, but I think it really works for the film. But
yeah,
but we're getting a bit
before I went into the film, like when you said at the end of last movie thoughts, fucking other series, never mind, Movie Mumbles. At this point, we could probably just adopt movie thoughts because I'm probably never going to make movie thoughts again. But anyway,
whatever.
At the end of the last Movie Mumbles, you said that it was the director of the Saw movies, and I was like, yeah, it's probably not going to be very good then. And then I kind of went through the motions, because then I found out that Anthony Head was in it, and he's probably one of my favourite British cult actors. Like, he's in everything in Britain, including Buffy, which is just like amazing.
Yeah, that's probably his biggest known role to most people. The film has some weird, it's not just Anthony Head, but there's a lot of, unique people. Like, it's a weird cast they assembled for this film. There's Alexa Vega, who most people might know from the Spy Kids films. There's Paris Hilton, and
which everyone knows from that porno she did.
Okay. Well, yeah. There's also there's a bunch of actors. Like, some of them are known for
Paul Savino.
Yeah, Paul Savino
from.
He's been in a lot of movies. We found out
he's been in a lot.
He's been
yeah. The one I noticed him from, he was actually from Romeo and Juliet, which was just really bizarre. It's like an odd mix, like Romeo and Juliet, and then a horror opera kind of science.
Yeah,
fiction.
a lot of these actors are usually known for they're mostly known for low budget horror films if you looked at their catalog. Yes. And it's a strange mix of these people that makes for a very kind of unique cinematic experience, I will say. But first off, spoilers. We're going to be revealing spoilers of the film.
Yeah, we never actually gave us spoilers for
High School Musical, but I think we didn't care.
Cares about that.
Nobody cares. Let's be honest. But yeah, so let's start off. Womble, what was your thoughts on the film? I'm interested to see your thoughts, because I could tell from last weekish, you were not looking forward to it initially.
So yeah, I like to go into every single movie open-minded, and I definitely did with this. The initial start, where it starts off in this kind of cartoon,
it's got a comic book feel,
comic book style, behind it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can get into this. And then it kind of subverts that form a little bit more, and then he's telling it as though it's like an opera. This is more of an opera than it is a musical, because it's constant singing all the way through, and they're talking directly to the audience all the way, well, more or less all the way through. And the narrator, pretty much, he is just exposition at that point. And that's kind of what happens in operas rather than musicals. Musicals, you have to fill in a lot of the gaps yourself, whereas with operas, it's all told straight at you. I'm not a huge opera fan. I've been to a few, but one, I can't understand a word that is happening in the operas, and two, it's just kind of a bit if you know what I mean. it's very over the top, dramatic. The costumes look great. The singing sounds amazing, but I just don't understand what they're saying. So for this to be like more of an opera, like that's kind of fun for me because you can kind of understand it and you get along with it. Though the story and the backstory for this is so complex. At first, I had a lot of trouble, like kind of like sitting down and sitting down and like really processing what was happening.
Yeah, I will say the plot is fairly you have to pay attention. Like it is. But
here's the thing: it's a really simple plot. It's just the fact that it's weird. Like it's weird. It's almost weird for the sake of being weird. And last year, I went to see a film called Neon Demon, which said that, it was going to be like this cult classic and everything like that. But in the end, it just, for me, felt like it was just weird for the sake of being weird. I don't understand why people could like that. And I've kind of got that feeling with this. It was just kind of a bit, It was okay. Like, there was a great performance by Anthony Head. I thought he gave it his all, and he always does in pretty much every role. I've never seen him sleep a role like at all. And Paul Savino, he was great in the role as well. The rest of them, I'm kind of a bit not really that
I can get that reaction. Honestly, this is kind of a love it or hate it film. You're gonna get like
definitely.
It's very. I would say this is a divisive kind of film. Mainly, like the contents of it, it's not gonna please everyone. That should be established. No. Me myself, I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think I appreciated what it was. It was like this weird, it's like grimy, it's got this, I will give the film this. It has a great sort of setting, like there's a great atmosphere to like each scene. Like once you enter this like weird, gross, grimy world, it sucks you in. I think the like...
okay, so... This is my problem with this. It has a brilliant world, and a world that I'm really interested in. I love, like, weird futures that everything has gone to pot. Like, V for Vendetta is amazing. Like, the whole... In fact, yeah, the film, but also, like, the comic book is just fantastic. But my kind of, like, my favourite film of all time, and I know I don't say I've got a favourite one, but one of my best top... up there is Blade Runner, and that is just like a weird dystopian future, and I love those sort of films. And this has that. It has a great backstory. But the problem I had with this film, there was just way too much going on. Like, they needed to narrow down that focus and build the world, and almost go out and then do other films in this world, in this universe, and do different stories in this universe, and that's kind of what I would like to see. But because the first film it has the Batman v Superman complex. It's trying to do too much, and it's got too many characters that are just thrown in left, right, and center. And I know that's kind of how musicals tend to go usually. Like Les Mis is just a massive clusterfuck of characters, and throughout when we're going through the like musical theme, I'm definitely going to be referring back to Les Mis quite a lot, because that's my favourite musical. I've seen it about 20 or 30 times, West End, amateur, everything like that. And for me, that is like the perfection of musicals and how high they can actually get. So I always like to refer back to those.
Okay, so let's go over and kind of explain what the plot is. You know, not too big.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much...
I suppose I'll start waffling off.
No, but anyway, essentially what this dystopian kind of future is, it's essentially everyone has like kidney or organ problems, essentially, and because like it's some weird epidemic that arises, and because of that, a big corporation of organ donors essentially arises. And leading this organ donor organization is Roddy Largo, who is like just pretty much this big evil corporate guy. And mixed into that is a story about like this little girl whose father accidentally kills his mother, so he feels grief about that. So he keeps his daughter kind of locked into this like kind of like cage-like setting. But also his father is a Repo Man, who Repo Men are essentially... like, they work for Roddy Largo, and Roddy gives you organs, essentially, if you need them, but if you don't keep up on your payments, this Repo Man comes and literally rips out the organs from you. And
yes, yeah. And that kind of plot in itself is a great movie. Like, what you've described there, I want to see that movie. That sounds amazing. But then they've also got this weird side plot with the main villain, which is played by Paul Savino.
Yeah.
And he's
dying of cancer.
He's dying of cancer, and he wants to give his major business on to someone else and not his children. And then you've got another subplot where the children are like all weird and fucked up, like Paris Hilton's character, of which I can't remember her name. She's got this plastic surgery obsession, which is probably more like the actual real Paris Hilton in real life. And then you've got like the other two. One of them is a masochist who likes to wear different faces, and the other one just likes to kill people. And then you've got, like, another story where there's this grave robber that's going around, and he doesn't really do much apart from just give exposition every so often, and he pops into the story just because he's there. So that, for me, that is why the movie doesn't work. If it was just about the father and the daughter trying to struggle, this daughter finds out that her father has this dark, deep secret. He is essentially, he is split between the two. He's killed his wife. He's in remorse. And the way he copes with that is by killing people and holding his daughter in. That's a massive spoiler because you find out that his daughter isn't actually sick because he's the one that's feeding her, although it's kind of obvious. He's the one that's making her poisoned. Like, that story in itself should have just been the film. And if we go to the actual stage play, the original one, it was just about the grave robber. That was all the original one was about. Yeah. And then they adapted it, and then they added a Repo Man. So it was the grave robber and the Repo Man. And then the Repo Man got a daughter. Oh, no, it was the grave robber that got the daughter.
Oh, really?
And, so it gets really complicated really quickly because... I think it was about 2002 when they did the original stage play, and I had to look this up because I was generally interested because I'd never heard of it before, and I don't like to go into like not knowing things. And when I'm intrigued by something, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, and then I'll pick it up and I'll try and research and stuff. Like originally for this, it was a 10-minute short about Repo the Genetic Opera. And it was a short. It was a short film. And I've seen that. I went and watched that as well. And that is way better than this because it's condensed. And it kind of works.
Okay, I will agree the plot can get kind of complicated, but I don't have as much of an issue with it. I feel like there is still like connecting elements that do work. I do agree.
There are things that work, and I love the world that it's set in. It's just that, like, there are moments that are just unnecessary in it as well, because you have, like, the cartoon moment the comic book moment where you find out that not Paris Hilton, whatever her name is, Alexa Vega's mother was killed by her father. And you find out that moment, Anthony Head, you read it on the comic books, and then Anthony Head then tells you the exact same thing in live action, and you see it again. And it's just, that happens a few times. And it's just like, why did you do that? You're doing this to fill out time? Or are you doing this because... I don't know, you want to be weird and you're just trying to be like nuancy and stuff?
I'll be honest, I think they start, I will agree sometimes it gets repetitive, but I think it's just to better clarify it because the film in general doesn't make things that explicit when it comes to certain details. They do reference it a lot, but it's not.
So this is kind of my answer to that problem. You kind of do a Sin City-esque style to it.
Okay.
So you have 3 stories. You can do that. You can do like the grave robber. You can do the story of the... No. In fact, no. You do the story of the Repo Man. You do the story of the daughter. And then you do the story of the big bad guy at the end. And that's the final one. And then the final act is all of these 3 stories coming together at the end in the opera. And each time you go through to the end of the story, you go back and then you find something else out at the end of each arc. If you're not... Does that make sense?
I understand what you're...
I feel that would be... more indicative, and then you could go into really cool places with it, because each story could have their own style of cinematography, which is what I was kind of getting from the characters. So, for instance, Anthony Head's daughter, she had a very emo gothic music video. Like, it was a steampunk music video to all of her songs and her solos, so she would aggressively change positions, and it would be jarring to continuity, but that kind of fits in with her theme, because she's an angsty teenager. And then you can have, like, a really dark way of looking at the Repo guy. He starts off really high, and then the camera's looking at him from below, and he's really powerful, and then as he progresses, he just gets weaker and weaker and weaker through that arc, and you could do, like, little things like that. And then with the big bad guy, you could maybe even do that all in the comic book style, and then you've got 3 different styles, and 3 different ways, 3 different arcs, and then together you can do the final piece in live action, and you can see it all in its glory, and it's a massive payoff, because it will build up. Hopefully.
But the thing is, if you do that, it's not going to be a musical. It'd be.
Oh no!
I don't think it would connect.
You still keep the music in it. Like, you can still do the musical solos, like, all the way through it. You can keep that music all the way through it. Like, I don't actually have too much of a problem with the music, although I did find it a little bit boring after a while, because I'm not really into that music per se. But I enjoyed a lot of the solos and the songs, but it was the way that they were formatted that I didn't like them. Okay. But anyway, yeah. So those are, like, my major thoughts on it. I guess we could move on. I kind of want to keep going about the cinematography as well, because that's kind of interesting throughout, because it keeps changing. There's a lot of different styles and themes through it.
Okay, I will say that. So, I personally do really enjoy the movie. I do think it has some problems, and I can go into it a bit later, but I just want to point out by saying, I agree with you. It has a very unique, like, atmosphere to it. I didn't really find... I will admit, the plot gets complicated, but I didn't really find it that hard to follow, if you catch my drift. I do think those comic book sections are necessary, because in some cases, like with the father, it that kind of stuff does get explained, but there's other stuff like Maggie's, like, plot, and, like, Largo's, like, kind of reveal that he poisoned her, which it gets mentioned in the comic books, but they never really do much with it, where you wouldn't get that part of this backstory otherwise. So I do think... but
that's just needless exposition, and I think you could probably infer
I don't think
that
so.
He's the murderer in other ways than that. Like, you don't need all that comic book time for that scene. Like, you don't need to have that knowledge. In fact, yeah, you don't even need to have the knowledge that he's the murderer. Like, you can just infer it. You don't have to be told it directly. And again, that's another problem that I had with those comic book moments.
Okay, I will say that, but honestly, I think on an aesthetic level, I think it looks cool, and I think honestly some parts of the film kind of just run on. It looks kind of cool, so this is why we're doing it. And I do think that that kind of thing gives it an appeal to many people. And this film is, you mentioned Neon Demon tried to be a cult film. Well, this one is kind of a cult film. Like, people really do.
Yeah, I've seen that there's a big cult following, so potentially I'm upsetting a lot of people by saying this. The thing is, I understand why there's a cult following, because it is an interesting universe. It's a brilliant universe. I just want it to be 10 times better than what it is. It's like, it's really poorly directed as well. There are some moments where, and I don't like to call out actors, but and I'm not going to mention specifics, but let's just say she's been in a porno where she's just, like, ridiculous. It's like she's only there because she's got that name, and it's just, I don't care about it. Although what I did like about this was the fact that every single woman that you see in this film is very attractive, and that's the whole point of, like, the nipping and the tucking and, like, organs and things like that, and the actual genetics behind it. I love that. And there's a lot of little things. There's a lot of attention to detail in this film, where you can pick things out. So I love that about it, but then it's just the main story kind of lets it down. The way it's presented kind of lets it down. And I think the main problem is the direction itself. Anthony Head, he really stands out in this for me.
I do agree.
And so does Paul Savino. Like, he stands out. But then the rest of the cast kind of, And I don't know if that's an actor's thing or a director's thing, but Paris Hilton, in particular, was just boring. She was just dull.
I will agree with you. I'm not gonna agree with you. Like, I think most of the cast do a decent job for the most part. I do agree with you. Paris Hilton is kind of like the weak link of the bunch. I feel like,
yeah,
I think she's all right with acting. I'm not gonna.
She's not. She's not even needed. That's the thing.
I'm just gonna say I think her singing is where it's really lacking. I think like in the moments where she sings, it kind of does. I think she's all right. She's passable in acting.
Although having said that, I think her character is supposed to be bad at singing, but she thinks she's good.
That you do have a point.
So I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, that keeps to the character.
I mean, Paris Hilton is playing Paris Hilton, so.
But then when we go to like Sarah Blackman, who plays what's her name, the blind woman, Blind Mag.
Yeah.
Like, she's just boring as well. She doesn't really add anything to it. There's this whole complex structure, how she was blind and she signed away her life and everything like that. And like, there's a lot of things going around her, about her, and there's a lot of things said about her that are like, oh wow, she's so amazing and she's brilliant at singing, but we never actually see that. Whenever she's on screen, she does like this weird thing with the hands. She never looks like that she wants to run away. She looks like that she's perfectly happy. She's got a lot of money. She's the star of like a really great act. And she's got these brilliant eyes, which she references herself that these eyes can do more than anything. Then all of a sudden, she rips the eyes out. It's like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
Well,
I know there was a little moment when she was first introduced in that song.
I think you're missing a point.
There was a little moment there, but like it was never actually shown. Like that whole character arc was not needed in the film, and I think you're missing. Thing.
I disagree with you on that point. I think there is kind of an importance to that. I mean, first off, she has a connection with Marnie's mother, who I think really is we don't actually ever really see her for the most part, except for like post Thomas, that stuff. But like, she's kind of like the character that kind of connects all these subplots. First off, she is Mac's friend in that case, and she was also like the godmother to it. Also, I think you missed the point where like the Repo Man specifically was planning, or Roddy in particular wanted her eyes after her last performance. That's the big part that was established with the character. She wanted to essentially escape from her lifestyle. There's even like this whole like bird motif which kind of plays into her character. And her eyes, you know, they're Jinko eyes. So of course the Repo Man's supposed to come in and kill her essentially after that last performance. So when she takes out her eyes at the end, that's kind of the big fuck you to Roddy Largo essentially for keeping her a prisoner, so they won't get her eyes.
Well, yeah. No, and I got that, and I kind of did, and that was like, you just kind of reinforced the point there, is the fact that all of that was happening around her. She was never actually directly involved in any of that until right at the end. We never got to see her about it, so then that whole story arc was kind of, it was just exposition. It was just told at us, like all the way through, it was just told at us. We never found that out for ourselves. And it's the same thing throughout the story with a lot of the different characters.
I would disagree, because I feel like she is kind of the reason, she's kind of helps Shiloh in the way. Because remember, in that, in one of the scenes, she specifically goes to Shiloh to kind of explain, because she thought Shiloh was dead. Well, specifically, Anthony Head's character explained that she was dead to Maggie, but when she saw that Shiloh, so she basically reaches out to Shiloh, and she kind of brings Shiloh out of her kind of situation by explaining a bit more about her mother, and especially, this is all on her explaining, and because of her interference, you know, Shiloh's like trying to get Anthony Head's character to stop the Repo Man from killing Mag, unknowing that, you know, Anthony Head is the Repo Man, and all this stuff. So I feel like she does play a role. She kind of acts like the mother figure that Shiloh never had.
No, well, she doesn't, because they only talk once on they only talk directly once, and that's cut off short because Anthony Head comes in. But yeah, no, like. My main problem is there's a lot of story going on and you never get time for the individual stories. It's all glossed over and it's all exposition. And that's kind of my problem. That's my problem with opera. That's my problem with this film. And because it's presented as an opera, and actually the last scene was very cleverly done. It's like, oh, well, now we're going to have the opera, and then it's all electro-punk, steampunk kind of very gothic style. And I love that scene. Like, I love the visuals of it. I love the world. And that... like, it works for me. Like, the overarching stories together, just, like, they don't have the time required to spend on it. A lot of it is exposition. You're told what to think, you're told how to think, and it's just kind of... I'll tell you what it's like. It's like a combination of the Rocky Horror Show and Sweeney Todd, but without that character vibe and that sass, and you just don't feel for those characters as much as you do for the other films. And, like, for Sweeney Todd, for instance, like, you feel for him from the moment he steps off that boat. And, like, it's, like, such an amazing scene where he's there and you root for that one character. And for the Rocky Horror Show, there's moments throughout, and that's more comedy as well, that's weaving into it, but you're still feeling for those characters all the way through the Rocky Horror Show. And, like, I get why the Rocky Horror Show is a huge cult following. Like, there are people in the UK that dress up to go and see the Rocky Horror Show every October. Every single October, without fail. The same with Sweeney Todd. Like people will dress up and go and see them. Whenever there's an amateur show going on near me, you can guarantee that there is someone going to watch that in full dress, full Sweeney Todd, blood everywhere kind of thing, or dressed as barbers and that sort of thing. Like, there's a huge cult. But with this, like, I just don't see that cult happening. There's also, like, the fourth wall breaking for me was awkward too, because, like, they're looking directly into the character. And I know with musicals you have to fourth wall break. A lot of the time you do, and, like, stage
I don't really get that vibe.
Like that.
I think the only character that really
personal thing. Yeah, but it
I think only the grave robber is really the only character that really explicitly breaks the fourth wall.
He was making it.
He's like the narrator.
Personal. That is what I didn't like. That I didn't like him making it personal. He wasn't telling it to an ensemble like you would in the theater. He was telling it to you specifically, and it made it personal, and it made it feel awkward right from the get-go, and I did not like that. And the gore was way over the top. Just way over the top. Like, it didn't need to be that gory. It was weird for the sake of being weird.
It's a film about a guy who rips people's guts out. Like, that's explicitly a thing.
I believe...
How do you expect that to not be gory?
No. You do it in subtle ways, and you don't see the gore until
I don't know. I feel like for this story, I feel like
at the end, you have to describe it, and you have to make the audience anticipate it and reflect against it, and then you see it, and then it's terrifying.
That
works. You can't show it right from the beginning, and it just doesn't work. And for me,
I feel like that's a stylistic thing.
I did not like this film. But the thing is, even though I say I didn't like this film, I can't knock it, because it is unique, and it is trying to do something. It's breaking out of the ordinary, and for that reason alone, I will back this film. I could back this film, and I will probably end up buying this film because it's unique and it's different. And if people go out and buy this sort of thing, you're going to get more unique and different movies, and that is what art is, and that is why I like the cinema.
Okay.
So for that instance, I don't like the film. I really don't like it, but I've got to back it. Like, it's so unique and so different. I've not really seen something quite like this before.
Okay.
And that makes it worth it.
So it's clear we have a bit of a disagreement here.
That's the time up as well.
I know, but let me just explain my point, because you spend most of the thing, like, bitching about this.
I've been ranting like crazy, but I had to do it.
Okay, so I do think you're giving this film less credit than it does deserve. I don't agree with you. I feel like, honestly, for this film, I think the blood and gore actually does add some appeal to it. Like, it does make it less appealing for mass audiences, but I think it gives kind of a special feel to it. Plus, it's about a guy who rips people's organs, but going along anyway with that, I do think there is a kind of macabre sort of taste to it. I do think it has some humorous moments. I mean, literally, there's a scene where a guy is used as a puppet. Like, his organs are used, like, and he's basically a ventriloquist dummy, which I think
that's a whole nother thing that I've got a problem with as well, because Anthony Head was supposed to be a good guy, and then he's, like, enjoying it right at the beginning, so you're just like, well, he's obviously
It's kind of a split personality thing. It's a split person.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if they'd have spent time developing that, it would have been a great story, but...
Okay. So, I do think that there are more brilliant elements to this film than you're giving credit for. I think the plots with Anthony Head's character and Roddy Largo, I think there's like a connecting, like there's like a parallels between those two stories.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Roddy Largo's story is about his family and how he treats his like his sons and daughters, and how much he hates them essentially because they are bratty, but he's also like a shitty father, so that he has shitty offspring, and he also kind of poisons the mother. But in the same way, it's kind of a struggle between the Anthony Hess character, who's also a father, but he clearly loves his daughter and he wants to do the best for him, but he's doing it in all the wrong ways. And he's also poisoning her in a way, so there's a neat kind of connection there. And also, there's also the thing with Shiloh being kind of a caged animal. She's almost like a doll in a dollhouse, which I think is played with her wardrobe. And that kind of also plays with the Burn the Cage theme with Blind Mag's character. And also, Amber kind of serves as, like, okay, there is a lot to this film, I will give it credit, and I will say, I do have flaws with the movie. I think the Shiloh and the father plot, I think it's not handled that well as it could have been. Like, I feel like there are points where you don't like the father as much as you should. Anthony Head gives a great performance in this film, but I feel like, especially, like, there are moments where it's hard to sympathize with him. Like, there is the split personality thing, but there's also moments where he's just, like, trapping her here, and you're still supposed to care for him at the end, which makes it hard for... I do have difficulty sympathizing with him at the end, even though, like, when he dies, and, like, Shiloh's holding her hand, you're supposed to feel bad for them. I also think, like, the fact they never find out that Roddy Largo, like, killed the mother, I feel like that was kind of a waste of potential. Despite all of that, despite all the flaws I have with the film, I really like the film. I feel like it is a love it or hate it kind of thing. I appreciate the kind of macabre, the bloody atmosphere. I think it does its own style, and it does it damn good. I think it creates a great world. I do think the plot is interesting. I do think, for the most part, I do like the intricate, stuff. It can get a bit complicated, but I do like the movie, and I will defend the movie, and I know Womble hates it, but...
I don't hate it, but I wanted to hit home the points,
yeah, okay,
the bad points, because I felt that, like, it could have been so much more. That's what I want out of it, and that's why I'm hitting it so hard, is because I really do appreciate it, and I love that sort of, the whole idea behind it. I just don't think it was executed very well, and that I have to hit it hard, because if I don't hit it hard, then I'm not being true to myself.
Okay, so yeah. I understand that, and you know what?
I try to be constructive as much as I can. Yeah, no, I'm not just like, I am open. Like, there are a lot of moments that I do like in it, and like you said, with the whole Anthony Head's like parallel between Giannetti, like those parallels work really well, and I felt that the movie could have just been about that, or it could have just been about the father and daughter thing, or it could have just been about Royalty at the top of the top of his game, but it didn't have to have all of it, and that is where it fell apart for me. It was just too much. But anyway, at the risk of repeating ourselves, I think that we should call it. We've kind of gone over our time lot too.
Yeah, I know, but it was just...
I had a lot to say, I apologize.
I just want to get my stuff out of the way, because I didn't want to just be you ranting about the movie, even though I personally like the movie, and I like the music. You might not like it, but I like the music. We never talked about the music. It's a musical thing.
Yeah, okay, really quickly, some of the music's good, some of the music's bad.
I like Citrate. I like the Citrate song. I think.
Yeah, the Citrate song is pretty good. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But again, that's more exposition. It's just exposition. Like, a lot of the songs were exposition rather than showing how these characters really felt. Yeah. Okay. No, I enjoyed.
Okay, so as you can tell, Repo the Genetic Opera, it is kind of like polarizing. It's got mixed reactions, but in general, I do think. I was glad I watched it. I'm sure Womble appreciates that I made him watch it.
I'm glad I've watched it. I really am, because I love watching things that are different. It just happens that I didn't enjoy it, but I enjoy my time watching these things. So yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, it is now my time to pick, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this one. I'm not going to fluff it up. I'm just going to get right down to it. I've already mentioned it once. In this podcast right today, it is Sweeney Todd. It is probably my second favorite musical of all time. I felt I needed to rewatch this. I've listened to the soundtrack hundreds of times. I've seen it on the West End. I've actually been in Sweeney Todd. I played Anthony in an amateur dramatic piece. So I really like this, and I feel that this is the answer to all of Repo's kind of problems.
Okay.
And now we're going to go the other way. I have a feeling that you're not going to like Sweeney, and yeah. Have you seen Sweeney?
I have not seen Sweeney. I like Tim Burton's work, but I have not seen Sweeney Todd. So I'm slightly interested. You know, I'm interested. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Awesome.
Now's your time to check out Sweeney Todd, the barber of Sweeney Street, or whatever that last part.
The demon barber of Fleet Street.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, yeah.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. Go watch it. We'll be back next time. Until then, we'll see you then. Bye.
Adios, muchachos.
Roy. Yeah, see ya. Whatever.
Yeah, okay, you don't got a thing, so you say nothing.
I don't have a thing.